The Supercar Challenge is powered by Pirelli, Autosportinsurance.com, Syntix Innovative Lubricants, Magla, create your own digital magazine, and Valero, FIA approved race and rally base layers. Hello and welcome to Spa for the third round of the Supercar Challenge powered by Pirelli. We're going to take a look at the Super GT, GTB, Super Sport and Sport classes because they all started in one huge grid on the 7-kilometre circuit. For many, Spa is the highlight of the season, but it also was a weekend that left a very bitter taste for the title contenders in 3 of our 4 classes. Among the discontented, Vard Slice and Chris Matthews, the GTB class championship leaders. After round 2, they had an 11-point lead over Porsche driver Jos Janssen and 21 points over Art Bosman. With 22 points on offer at each race, that's not a massive lead, and certainly not when disaster strikes, as it did on Saturday morning. Clouds of smoke were visible from the pit lane. This is what happened. I noticed that the engine wasn't getting fuel, and the engine stopped, and then I tried to park it, but as soon as I tried to stop, the cockpit just filled with flames. Felt like an explosion with flames everywhere. Turns out the injector rail broke clean off, spraying fuel onto the cockpit floor, and then it was probably ignited by a hot exhaust pipe. So I was in a really awkward situation. The car was still moving, but I couldn't see anything because of the smoke, and I was going to try and get out immediately. With all the flames, it was really scary. They went from my feet right up to my helmet. I was completely engulfed. Because of the sun, I was using a dark visor on my helmet. I had to open the helmet because I couldn't see anything, and that's how I ended up burning my face. Well, Vard unfortunately could no longer continue with his racing weekend at Spa, but after long debate, teammate Chris Matthews made the decision to start with JR Motorsport's spare car to score them vital championship points. But there was also good news in the JR Motorsport camp. Koen Bogaerts and Mark van der Aar making their debut in the GTB class with the second BMW M4 Silhouette. The reigning Super Sport champions haven't got rusty, and they grabbed pole for both races.
Nee, 2 keer pole is helemaal top. Maar het klinkt nu weer makkelijker dan het...
Taking pole for both races is awesome, says Koen, but it sounds easier than it was. We had a good test session at Zolder with Peter and Mark. Here at Spa, though, we really struggled to find the speed in the car. The track's high speed needs a completely different driving technique, and we were still driving it like a touring car. This morning, Donald Molenaar did a lap and he was already a few seconds quicker. Then he gave us advice on how to drive a downforce car. He explained we needed to carry more entry speed. First, you think it's not possible. You need to have a higher entry speed, though, to get more grip. Luckily, I managed to put that knowledge into practice during qualifying and took pole position both times. And what started well finished well, as Koen and Mark were handed victory in the first race of the weekend after the on-the-road winners Nicolas van Dierendonck and Manu van der Rijse received a penalty for not complying with the pit stop rules. Chris Matthews finished 9th in GTB, allowing himself and Vard Slice to retain the championship lead, but not by much. Bad luck also seemed to have the upper hand in the Super Sport class at Spa. Dennis de Borst and Martin de Klein, third in the championship, running into mechanical problems with their Seat Leon. A bitter pill to swallow, they were only 6 points behind in the championship. Ferry Monster Autosport did everything they could to identify the problem, but they eventually decided to take no risks and use their third Seat Leon. In the first race on Saturday, they eventually finished 5th and scored points that might prove to be very important at the end of the season. Less lucky though was championship leader Erik van der Munkhoff in his BMW Z4 GTR. 10 minutes into the first race it started to rain, and that's when it all went wrong for him at Rédillon.
Ja, het is een beetje zuur, ja. Dat kan ik wel vertellen. Nou, ja,
it's really worst case scenario, said Eric. It started to rain on a few parts of the track. I was already thinking about coming in for wet weather tyres. Then I was heading up to Rédillon. Suddenly I lost control, crashed into the concrete wall going really quickly, and unfortunately that was the end of the race. Front end of the car is badly damaged, chassis bent, even the engine mounts are broken. So for sure it was a big hit. No points for Erik van der Munkhoff, and the car is beyond repair for the weekend. The first race was won by guest drivers Joris and Bas Schouten, the father and son pairing even managing to finish 4th overall in the rain. Quite an eventful race, says Joris. Bas managed to bring the car in second place. We had to take it easy. We had used tyres, and that was a really great job. For me, the pressure to perform was enormous then, but the pace of our combination was very high. I really had my work cut out for me, though. The other father and son duo, Ronald and Loek van Loon, finished in second, taking a 10-point lead in the Supersport Championship, while third was Seat drivers Art-Jan Ringelberg and Dennis Heuveling. In the sport class, pole again went to the second place drivers in the championship, Bart Drost and Niels Kool with the BMW 135i.
We hebben alweer 50 kilo vanaf de vorige race.
The organisers gave us an extra 50 kilos to slow us down. Now we've got it in writing that the power to weight ratio is correct for the regulations. So that's a good competition in our class. I still don't know why we're so much faster here though. The first lap was almost a perfect lap, but the average time seems comparable to the times of the others. They didn't benefit from pole position for long though. A completely fogged up windscreen hampered progress. Bart Drost and Niels Kool couldn't fare better than 7th, while Saturday's race was won by championship leaders Chris Vogt and Bart van der Broek, who extended their lead to 13 points in the standings. So to Super GT. During the opening weekend at Zolder, Davitech Engineering became the first team to enter a Ligier JSP3. The LMP3 car was driven by Milan and Indy Dontje, and not without success. Milan returned at Spa with new co-drivers, none other than Le Mans winner Jan Lammers and supermarket entrepreneur Frits van Aert. Unfortunately, the Ligier sustained damage in free practice, so the yellow and white jumbo-sponsored LMP3 looked slightly different, but that didn't prevent Lammers from going very fast indeed. Nevertheless, pole position fell to the Renault RS01 of Belgian Jurgen Smet and Spaniard Jose Manuel Perez-Thecar. Last year they also entered the Renault RS01, but now it's a genuine GT3 machine. Although the Renault is tamed by the use of steel brakes rather than ceramic, a restrictor on the turbo and reduced aerodynamics, the lap times were still mighty impressive.
Wel, we zullen zien. Als het niet regent, dat is al om te beginnen.
Well, we'll see how it goes in the race. As long as it doesn't rain, we should go well. And the car now has a GT3 kit, so it's slower than last year. We don't know exactly how it'll fare here at Spa, though, compared to our rivals. Henry Tumbrink remains in the lead of the Super GT Championship with his Volvo S60 V8, but he now shares top spot with Mosler drivers Costa Canaroglu and Oliver Campos Hull, who fared better over the last race weekend in Oschersleben. Henry Tumbrink's had many successes here at Spa, but unfortunately he's had even more bad luck.
Spa is natuurlijk altijd voor mij een beetje een puntje.
Spa and me are never going to be best mates, he says. I've dropped out of the race on many occasions over the last few years because of bad luck. So my main goal here at Spa is to finish. That'd be quite an accomplishment. No, only kidding. We're aiming for the top step, of course. We just finished qualifying. I had to deal with a bit of traffic and a code red, so I didn't set the best lap times. 6 isn't really something we're delighted about, but the race is long. Too long, as it turned out for Henry, when a wheel wouldn't come off during the change from slicks to wets. It all went wrong at Oschersleben when the same wheel came loose. Here, just the opposite. His race is over 27 minutes after it started, and he therefore scores no points. Fortunately for Henry though, the damage in the championship is limited when closest rivals Costa Canaroglu and Oliver Campos Hull managed no better than 5th. The race is won by pole sitters Jurgen Smet and Spaniard Jose Manuel Perez-Thecar ahead of Frits van Aert and Milan Dontje, while Henk Thees claims his first podium of the season. The 90-minute endurance race on Sunday afternoon will again start on a dry track, but a cold one. It's only 14 degrees, and that may play a big role in the first part of the race. Because of the cold, some teams are opting for the softer medium Pirelli, like Berry van Elk with the Mosler and Henk Thees with the Pumax RT. As for Erik van der Munkhoff, when the BMW Z4 wasn't ready to race, he stepped into the winning car from Saturday's encounter, sharing with Joris Schouten, son Bas joining Ted van Vliet in the other JR Motorsport BMW. Berry van Elk here having trouble leaving on the warm-up lap, but he would find his way back into his starting position. Into the bus stop, Jose Manuel Perez-Thecar on pole in the red, white and black Renault alongside Jan Lammers. Henk Thijs and Barry van Elk on row 2, Ben Klukas and Jean-Pierre Lecoeur on row 3, and away we go. The Renault heads the charge down to the first corner. Jan Lammers in the middle of the track. Good start from Henk Thijs in the Pumax though, right up underneath the rear wing of the Renault as they go into La Source for the first time. Ben Klukas taking 4th place, Barry van Elk and the Mosler on the outside. Side by side they battle for 4th place. Down the inside comes Barry van Elk. Not the best line at Eau Rouge, especially on colder tyres. No tyre warmers here, remember. He gets great momentum on the exit though. The Mosel battle swings back in his favour. On board with Klukas. From 4th back down to 5th on the Kemmel Straight. Coming up to La Source, it is the leader Jose Manuel Perez Ricard from Henk Thijs and Jan Lammers, then Barry van Elk and Ben Klukas up to 6, Henry Zumbrink, but dropping back Oliver Campos Hull, the championship leader in the class. Well, what happened to him at the start? Here we go, lights have changed, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. On the run down to La Source, onto the brakes, trying to change down, the lever is moving. Listen, he's continually trying to change, he's got no gear there. He's got a box full of neutrals, and finally he gets a gear, and now he can head back to the pits to get it sorted out. The team working to try and make sure that he can get out again to do 75% of the 90-minute race distance to allow him to score some championship points. Race leader Jose Manuel Perez Ricard building a gap over Henk Thijs in the Pumax, who's got Jan Lammers all over the back of him in the Ligier. And then the two Moslers, Barry van Elk and Ben Klukas, ahead of Henry Zumbrink's Volvo and the black and green Ginetta LMP3 of Jean-Pierre Lecoeur. Barry van Elk and Henk Thijs both started on medium compound Pirellis, with the Moslers on the harder compound. Less grip in the opening stages from the harder compound tyres, but maybe not quite enough for Henk Thijs either with that medium, because he runs wide and Jan Lammers goes through for 3rd position. The Moslers wanted to start on the medium tyre too, as they did in Oschersleben where they dominated both races. But there's just too much grip on this high-speed Spa circuit, and they've already broken 3 suspension components in free practice, so they've had to go onto the less grippy, hard compound Pirellis. Mediums might be the best choice in this 90-minute race anyway, as with rain forecast, everybody's likely to have to come in and change onto wets at some stage. If they're lucky, that'll tie up with the pit stops. Barry van Elk all over the back now of Henk Thijs in the Pumax, and Jan Lammers already making his escape to try and chase down the Renault RS01 as the first spots of water start to fall around the Belgian Ardennes. Before then though, a battle raging for 3rd position, a 6-car train with the Pumax at the front and Barry van Elk here in 4th position working hard. Jan Lammers chasing off after the leader, Henk Thijs battling with Barry van Elk, then Ben Klukas and Henry Zumbrink in 6th, ahead of Jean-Pierre Lecoeur's Ginetta and Theodor Miskovsky's Lamborghini. Behind the delayed Mosler are GTB battle, Nicolas van Dierendonck in the Porsche Cup car being challenged by the Marcus Mantis of Coroyza, and behind poleman Mark van der Aar in the BMW M4 Silhouette. Oyster soon disposes of van Dierendonck, who raced a Corvette last year in Super GT and was championship runner-up. And then Mark van der Aar starts his attack for 2nd place. Marcel van der Maat leads in his BMW in Supersport from Danny Wagmans in the low-slung Seika Rapax. Eric van der Munkhoff in 3rd in the BMW M3 in this busy field. Marcel van der Maat sharing this BMW M3 3.2 GTR with Peter Scheuers. Danny Wagmans behind him in the Seika, sharing with Mike Barton. Well, out of Eau Rouge and through Radion, you saw there the Seika zipping by the BMW, using a much better line through Eau Rouge, always gives you the advantage up the hill. The BMW in the slipstream though has a chance to come back, pulls out a little early but has the inside line for braking, and he retakes the lead of the class. Behind him, Arndt Jan Ringelberg has moved up to 3rd in the Seat Leon, ahead of Eric van der Munkhoff. And here is Arndt Jan. Battle in front of him is holding up those 2 cars, and that is allowing him to get closer and closer. More power means more weight, and it's harder to get the BMW to corner. The low-slung, lighter, less powerful Seca goes through on the inside at Pouon, the double left-hander, and retakes the lead of the class from Marcel van der Maat. Meanwhile, the Seat trying to go the long way round the outside into Piff Paff, but he loses out. Fifth place is the black Ginetta there, that is Ben Scrivens, and then Benjamin van der Berg in 7th with Priscilla Spellman's Black Lotus right behind him. Art Bosman's GTB class Porsche is in amongst the front runners as the Seca makes its escape. Marcel van der Maat on the inside in the BMW finding the route a little blocked, the Seat closing in, and Ben Scrivens moving up to 4th place ahead of Martin de Klein. Priscilla Spellman also trying to make moves. Art-Jan Ringelberg down into Eau Rouge, the BMW in front, and the Porsche an inconvenience as the Ginetta starts to close in from behind. Up at Les Combes, the Seat of Art-Jan Ringelberg with lots more grip than the BMW, still trying to find a way past the pole sitter, but he's got trouble from behind as well. That Ginetta is right with him. Danny Wagman's already up the road in the Seca Rapex, and these battles only serving to slow the cars down. Through goes Scrivens, another good move from the Ginetta driver. GT4 spec Ginetta G50, more than a match for the rivals here in the Supersport class. The orange BMW susceptible to attack into Pouon. And again, the lighter, less powerful Ginetta, like the Seca the lap before, nips through on the inside of the double left-hander. And Ben Scrivens from 6th on the grid moves up to 2nd. The Seat continues its attack on the BMW, and right behind the two white cars, Eric van der Munkhoff and Martin de Klein in his Seat Leon. Dropping downhill to the lower part of the circuit, and in front of the big climb back to the pit lane, and it's here that the BMW's 3.2 litre engine will really start to pay off. The Seat right behind, but the 2 litre turbo no match for the grunt of the BMW, which will start to stretch its legs all the way up the hill. This is absolutely flat out stuff. The 2 litre turbocharged Seat though hangs on to the BMW. And a little mistake from Marcel van der Maat sees him run wide, and Art-Jan Ringelberg moves through into 3rd just as they get to the braking area for the bus stop chicane. Not a great lap for Marcel van der Maat in the BMW. There is Martin de Klein chasing Eric van der Munkhoff. On board with de Klein, van der Munkhoff right in front. He's got a couple of BMWs behind him as well. White 1 Series of Benjamin van der Berg and the black car of British driver Dan Stringfellow. Art-Jan Ringelberg holding off Marcel van der Maat for 3rd as the battle rages behind, and again the Seat with a good run down the hill. Does he have enough of an overlap though to go ahead into Eau Rouge? No, I don't think so. He has to allow the BMW back in front, and that'll drop him back towards the black car of Dan Stringfellow. But he is still trying to attack the BMW. Here we go. Better momentum out of Eau Rouge. He is in 6th gear, just building up the speed, gradually clumbing alongside. BMW moves over. There's somebody on the right in trouble. That's Jos Janssen, the blue Porsche, and he's 2nd in GTB. He pulls over and parks it. And the BMW just keeps his nose in front. Dan Stringfellow right there too. Stringfellow all over the back of this battle as well. If it goes wrong for the 2 white cars in front, he will pick up a couple of spots unless he gets tangled up in their excitement. Eric van der Munkhoff keeps his nose in front for the moment. Martin de Klein piling on the pressure, and he needs to hurry up. Dan Stringfellow is right there as they reach the lowest part of the circuit. Now they start the climb, and this is where the BMW's big engines really come into play. 2 litre turbo Seat just cannot deal with the power, and look at Stringfellow go straight by. A little confidence lift, maybe even a break there from the Seat. And Stringfellow attacking Eric van der Munkhoff, looking to go the long way round the outside into the bus stop. And do you know what? I think he may do it. He takes both of them on the run up the hill. Can't quite get it together. However, the Seat now has a chance to overtake both BMWs. They go 3 wide. De Klein on the left as the driver sees it, and right back from him, look at that, Stringfellow going around the outside of van der Munkhoff. So Decline picked up 1 spot, so did Stringfellow Van der Munkhoff, the net loser. He drops back 2 positions. Leader Danny Wagmans in the Seeker. He's got Ben Scrivens, Black Ginetta right behind him. And behind that is Art-Jan Ringelberg, Seat Leon. Trouble for the Lotus Exige, Priscilla Spellman and Jan van der Kooi. On Saturday they broke a supercharger. Now they're changing the spark plugs. Their race will be over after 20 minutes. Tough break here at Spa. Stay with us after the break. More from the 3rd round of the Supercar Challenge powered by Pirelli at the Belgian Grand Prix track at Spa. The Supercar Challenge is powered by Pirelli, Autosportinsurance.com, Syntix Innovative Lubricants, Magla, create your own digital magazine, and Valero, FIA approved race and rally base layers. Welcome back to Spa, the 3rd round of the Supercar Challenge powered by Pirelli. In Super GT, Jose Manuel Perez Ricard leads in the Renault RS01 GT3. But before we go back to the race at the front of the field, we'll take a look at the sport class. All the way at the back of this dusty start of the big grid, after Marshall's had to cover an oil spill up, is the pole sitter Bart Drost. He's in the Davitech Engineering BMW 135. But before they even get to La Source, he's lost the lead to Karin Bergsma in the black and white Lotus Exige and Chris Vogt in the Peugeot RCZ. Black car in front, that's a BMW Z4, that's a super sport class that's out of position. Right in front, there is Karin Bergsma, the white rear end of the Lotus. Got a very good run going here, Chris Vogt. Down the inside into Eau Rouge, she's going to have to be brave. Bergsman's going to have to give him the line, and she does. And he holds it together as he takes the lead of the class. Good move. Karin Bergsma also passed for second by the white and blue BMW there. That's your pole sitter Bart Drost in the 135. And before long she's in trouble from the 2 Series of Johan Vannerum as well. He outbrakes her and goes around Bart Drost for second in the class. Stan Van Oord's view of the battle with the Lotus on the right-hand side. On the left there, that's Harold Visselink in his 1 Series BMW, trying to find a way around the outside of Karin Bergsma. The lighter, less powerful Lotus brakes later on the inside, holds off Visselink, and later on in the lap she'll again get back past Drost for 3rd. So Visselink now chasing Drost. Bart Drost in the 1 Series, the white and blue car, and Harold Visselink in the 1 Series, the silver car with the stripes. He goes through, and Stan Van Oord looking to try and get by, as is Rob Neiman right behind. Van Oord is a spectator, but can't quite match the power of the 3-litre BMWs. His 2-litre Renault Clio lighter, nimbler, you can see that. He gets better mid-corner speed, and he goes past on the way up the hill. So good move at Stavelot. And the Clio managing to keep its nose in front. Bart Drost bottled up in that 1 Series BMW. Jose Manuel Perez Ricard still with a handsome lead in the Renault RS01. Little slower than it was when it made its debut last year, but still very competitive. Jan Lammers, his first race in this Ligier Coupe, and he is now starting to really pick up the speed, closing the gap to the leader. Close battle for 3rd place since the start. Barry Van Elk in the Mosler all over Henk Tace. Tace started second in the unique Pumax, but he has been struggling to try and hold off the Mosler. And again, Barry Van Elk with the softer tyre from the Michelin range, using that traction out of the bus stop, can't quite get around the veteran Henk Tace. Ben Klukas in the background, another of the 3 Moslers in the race. Henry Tumbrink taking it easy after wheel problems in race 1. Not quite as quick as race 1, but he needs championship points more than anything else. His rivals Oliver Campos Hull and Costa Canaroglu having gearbox problems. Ben Scrivens in the black Ginetta now leading Supersport from the Seeker Rapax of Danny Wagmans, who made the early front running. Art-Jan Ringelberg 3rd in his Seat Leon, but he seems to be having problems. car is playing up and he loses a spot immediately to Marcel van der Maat. He moves up into third. The Cayman of Pierre-Etienne Bourdais in 10th place, holding off the Bascouten-driven BMW M3 GTR V8. A battle of very different GT4 spec cars there. Scrivens and the Seika Rapax of Danny Wagmans just staying away from the battle for third. Marcel van der Maat with quite a lot of understeer in the BMW, and that's good news for Art-Jan Ringelberg in the Seat Leon. The BMW heavier and more powerful, but watch how it struggles to hold the racing line. Again and again the front end washing out, and that gives the Seat a chance to come back, get an overlap, and around the outside at the bus stop, you'll have to be careful that the BMW can't hold its line. Doesn't want to be on the outside. Traction at the rear a problem as well, as that 3-litre engine unleashes all its power onto the road. And the front-wheel drive Seat stays in 4th place. Martin de Klein, Dennis de Borst, Seat in 6th position, and between them 454, that is Dan Stringfellow driving solo in his M3 GTR V8. So 2 BMWs, 2 Seats now in this little queue for 3rd position at the moment. Marcel van der Maat with the advantage, but if his line is compromised through Eau Rouge, suddenly Art-Jan Ringelberg will be all over the back of him, and that's exactly what happens. Look on board, you can see Ringelberg coming alongside up the Kemmel Straight, and that's all momentum out of Eau Rouge. The BMW has got more horsepower, but just can't get it nicely delivered up the hill. Ringelberg on the outside, that's the racing line, but it is wheel to wheel as they get to Les Combes. Marcel van der Maat didn't want to give it away, but he had to give himself room to survive. Art-Jan Ringelberg back up to third, Dan Stringfellow right behind us. We ride with van der Maat, and Martin de Klein and Dennis de Borst's white Seat Leon is right behind him as well. So Marcel van der Maat's woes are only likely to get worse. Understeer rarely cures itself during the course of a race. If the setup isn't treating the car well, it's going to eat its tyres. And there alongside is Dan Stringfellow. The black BMW goes by. And now in the downhill double left-hander at Pouhon, van der Maat has been struggling all race. And right behind him is Martin de Klein. Despite all that battling, the leaders are not far away. Art-Jan Ringelberg must have a good view of the tail end of the Seika on most of the lap. And that's just encouragement for all these guys to keep chasing and to fight as clean as they can. Martin de Klein then knows that the BMW should be an easy target. It's struggling for grip. The front-wheel drive Seat putting the power down onto the road very well and still able to hold a tighter line. You can see the big orange BMW really writhing around. Marcel van der Maat can't be having much fun, and for teammate Peter Scheuers it's going to be even worse for the second 45 minutes. Down into Eau Rouge they plunge once more. The BMW drifting out wide. It really looks like a major handful. It's like taking candy off a baby for Martin de Klein. He's able to keep a nice, neat, tight line. And Marcel van der Maat is powerless to do anything about it. The Seat has got the run on him, and again around the outside. And van der Maat can't take the racing line. The Seat is still there. There it is. He's got the inside line in the second part of Les Combes, and through he goes. Marcel van der Maat is struggling. Sport class leader, the white and blue Peugeot, Chris Vogt, and now he's been reeled in by Johan Vannerum in the white and black BMW 235i. Vannerum all over the back of the Peugeot, and it's not long before he finds a way through to take the lead of the sport class. Behind Carlin Bergsma in third. This is the battle for fourth. And Marcel van Berlo in the Porsche dives to the inside of Harold Vesseling's BMW. They both drift out wide, and the Clio of Stan van Oord gets a chance to move through. This battle has been raging for lap after lap. Stan van Oord becoming a little bit impatient. Gets a good run going through Eau Rouge, but right in front of him the BMW starting its run up the hill. Harold Vesseling alongside him. And this is going to be a battle of bravery on brakes. Van Oord's trying to decide which way to go, whether he's going to brake earlier or later. Wesseling with the inside line. It's a tighter line, it's a defensive line, but it's not as quick. And Van Oort will come off Les Combes, still looking to try and get by that BMW, and there's a little rub there. Sticks his nose down the inside and down into Brussels. There's contact there as well. Bad news for Harold Wesseling and Teun Rutgers. The BMW is heading into retirement. Harold Wesseling said, I was on the line and he just hit my right rear. I immediately noticed that the balance of the car was all wrong. I steered towards him to try and give him as little room as possible to get through. My car was all over the place and I hit him with my front, and that made things even worse. Little to no car control. I really had to come into the pits. Teun tried to do some laps as well, but really it was a bit pointless to continue. In his ancient but trusty Marcus Mantis, Kurt Oyser leads the GTB class from Nicolas van Dierendonk's Porsche and Mark van der Aar in the BMW M4 Silhouette. Find out how they fare along with everyone else as we continue our coverage of round 3 of the Supercar Challenge after this. The Supercar Challenge is powered by Pirelli, Autosportinsurance.com, Syntix Innovative Lubricants, Magla, create your own digital magazine, and Valero, FIA approved race and rally base layers. Welcome back to Spa. This is our lead battle. Jose Manuel Perez Eckhart has now been caught by Jan Lammers, the black and yellow Ligier JSP3 of the former Le Mans winner. And this is a battle between downforce in the Ligier and power in the Renault. The safety car, though, is out, and that will neutralise the 90-minute second race. And here is why. We're on board with Marcel van der Aert in the Supersport BMW. And a lurid high-speed lose across the grass, and amazingly seems to hit nothing. But that was a big, big moment for Marcel.
Direct al bij insturen Eau Rouge rij je zeg maar 220 ongeveer.
I happened going straight into Eau Rouge. Must have been doing around 220 kilometers an hour, and it felt like I got a puncture. Certainly that's what the feeling was, but we've got the car. Turns out that a bolt in the right-hand suspension just sheared straight through, and once that snapped, the right wheel just snapped to the left, so I got launched onto the grass. I thought I might just shoot off the track and end up in the barriers, so I tried downshifting, gave it full throttle to try and spin the car and avoid hitting anything. And luckily it worked. I was able to get the car stopped in one piece, but it was a lucky escape to get away with no damage, and really, that could have been much worse. Ben Scrivens in the Ginetta ahead of Danny Wagmans and Dan Stringfellow in the Supersport class. Then the two Seats, the yellow and grey car, Art-Jan Ringelberg just ahead of Martin de Klein. Dan Stringfellow's BMW absolutely flying all over the back of Danny Wagmans in the low-slung Seika, and as he gets too hot into the bus stop chicane, makes a mistake, and that allows Stringfellow to close right up once more. With Martin de Klein now, Art-Jan Ringelberg in front, down into Eau Rouge. Car bottoming out almost at the bottom, but a good run through. And he's got a great momentum behind him, slingshot up the hill. Now he's in the slipstream from Art-Jan, and Ringelberg could do nothing about it. De Klein almost has to lift off for a moment there, just to avoid running into the back of the Seat. The closing speed is so high, and he goes through at Les Combes, up into 4th position in the Supersport class. Battle for 3rd in Super GT, veteran Henk Thees versus younger Ben Klukas. Klukas' next single-seater driver. Here's red, white and black Mosler all over the back of the unique Rapax for 3rd place. Klukas has already put Barry van Elk behind him. That's him in the background with the headlights on as they start now to run into the rain. Wipers are on, headlights are on, and it is now where drivers have to be extra cautious because they never know how much grip will be around the next corner. Look for the headlights on the road. The track is a little shinier here. It's going to be damper in Eau Rouge. And Henk Tace is taking no chances. Ben Klukas all over him. Super GT leader still Jose Manuel Perez Ricard in the Renault. Jan Lammers right behind in the Ligier LMP3 car, breathing in his exhaust fumes. If he's a little race rusty, it certainly doesn't show. Lammers brings the car in to hand over to his teammate in second spot for the mid-race stops.
Nou, het is gewoon vrij moeilijk, omdat hij heeft een beetje meer vermogen. Hè? En wij kunnen sneller...
Tough race, said Jan. The Renault RS01's got more horsepower than us, but we've got better cornering speed. Problem is, where we're faster, that's not really places that you can overtake. Once you get off the corners, the Renault just starts to pull away. But I really enjoyed the race. David Tech have set up a perfect handling car. Well, Milan's now got his work cut out for him with this rain, but I had a great time. It's been a while since I've raced anything, but at the moment things are looking promising. Not looking so good for Barry van Elk though, getting out of his Mosler, which has come into the pits for its stop without a nose. Explanation is pretty straightforward. It started to rain, he said. The team's BMW came in immediately for wet weather tyres, so I had to wait another lap. I was coming up towards the bus stop, taking it easy because of all the puddles, but the car started aquaplaning and I spun. It was in a straight line, but unfortunately when the car was backwards, air got under the nose and ripped it off. Nothing got broken, but without the nose, I don't have any lights, and so I can't continue, and that means the race is over. Similar problem in the same place for Teodor Miszkowski. The Polish driver has spun his Lamborghini Aventador. He's damaged the nose. Handing over to André Levant, and they continue. They're 7th in class and 12th overall on their debut in the series. As the rain intensifies, there's a full course yellow from the race organisers, and that allows all the new drivers who have taken over the cars during the pit stops in the rain to become accustomed to the weather. Milan Doncha in the Ligier with the lead in the heavy spray, everybody keeping their speed down behind the safety car. Well, the Renault RS01 of Jürgen Smet came out in the lead but lost it. Henry Zumbrink in 6th position, not too far from the Ginetta LMP3, but taking no chances when he discovers that the Mosler of Costa Canaroglu and Oliver Campos Hull is out of the race.
It was the actual mechanical bit of the change that seems to be stuck, so we don't know exactly what it is. Maybe a suspension thing or the cable problem, but we're out. So unfortunately it's a whole race, so we're getting 0 points. So it's a problem for the championship, but we're still there, we're close.
A mistimed pit stop by the race leaders means that Milan Doncha has to come back to the pits for a stop-and-go penalty. Jan Lammers looking concerned at this turn of fortunes, but Milan manages to hold the lead and they win Saturday's 90-minute Enduro by 37 seconds over the RS01. And the Renault drivers, of course, feared the outcome in the rain. Third place goes to veteran Henk Tace. He seems to have put his mechanical woes behind him now. And we've had 5 different winners this season, both single drivers and duos, from the 6 races so far. It's the second win for Milan Doncha this season, but it's the first in Supercar Challenge for Jan Lammers.
Het was even spannend natuurlijk, we hadden nog een stop and go.
It was pretty exciting after we got the stop and go penalty. I made a mistake when I came in for the pit stop. I did something wrong with the stopwatch, so we went out too early, but it went fine in the end. Milan did a great job in the rain. The car and the team were great as well. So yeah, I'm really happy. All change in the championship as Alberto Di Martin and Ben Klukas take the lead, 4 points ahead of their teammates. Henry Zumbrink now 6 points behind in third. He probably wishes he'd pushed harder in the rain now. Nicolas van Dierendonck and Manu van der Rijzen were denied their race win on Saturday. Now Cor Oyser and Dennis Alleman get a penalty for speeding in the full course yellow, so the Porsche drivers do in fact get a home race win. Mark van der Aert and Koen Burkhardt move up from third to second, and Marcel van Berlo finishes in third spot as Oyser and Alleman drop to fourth. 7th for Chris Matthews, enough to keep him in the lead of the GTB Championship with teammate Vard Slice, 7 points ahead of Art Bosman, and dropping out of race 2, Jos Janssen drops back to third. The rain played a major role in the outcome of the Supersport race, on board with Luc van Loon, who took over from his father and started to slice through the field in the ex-World Touring Car Championship BMW. He showed absolutely no qualms about racing hard and fast in the rain. This is the battle for 6th place with race 1 winner Joris Schouten. Erik van der Munkhoff, of course, the co-driver in that car after his car was wrecked in race 1. And a great run through Eau Rouge by the slenderest of margins. He goes right around the outside. Luc van Loon moving up the order. Benjamin van den Berg handing his car over to older brother Robert. And once they finally get it going, he shows that he too is no slouch in the rain. He hunts down Dennis Heuveling's yellow Seat Leon and they battle for 2nd place. The front-wheel drive cars should have the advantage in the streaming wet conditions, but apparently nobody has told Van den Berg. Somewhere in the ball of spray is Heuveling, and Van den Berg eats him alive up the Kemmel Straight, going right by for 2nd place. However, he can't catch Dennis de Borst. He uses all his experience and the front-wheel drive of the Seat to charge away to victory. A great result, as their own car couldn't start after mechanical problems and they were in the spare.
Het viel niet mee. Het was vooral...
Wasn't easy, says Dennis. Track was extremely slippery, especially at Eau Rouge. Aquaplaning everywhere. Had my hands full keeping the car between the white lines. But it's great to finish first. Car handled really well. It wasn't our own car, but it was excellent to drive. And I'm thrilled that we scored maximum points. Or at least they should have, but they were penalised for speeding in the full course yellow, so they dropped back to 2nd. Luc and Ronald van Loon, who actually finished 4th, obeyed the speed limits and that paid off. They moved up to claim the race win. With the 2nd and a 1st here at Spa, they also take the lead in the championship, while Erik van der Munkhoff drops back to a disappointed 4th position. Victory in the sport class goes to the new Belgian duo of Johan van Rum and Jean-Luc Behetz. They win by over a minute on their debut with their BMW 235i. Championship leaders Chris Vogt and Bart van der Broek finished in 2nd ahead of the Lotus of Carlin Bergsma and Peter de Jong. I did the first stint, did the first 40 minutes of the race in dry conditions, says Johan. I was able to come in at just the right time to switch to wets. We lost no time. And my teammate Jean-Luc, who's already had to go off and do the next Belcar race, did a perfect job. Chris Vogt and Bart van der Broek extend their lead in the championship after disappointing results for pole sitters Bart Drost and Niels Kool. And that is it for Spa Francorchamps, so join us next time out. Round 4, we're back at Zolder for all divisions, with the Superlights having their own separate races on the 2nd and 3rd of July. We'll see you there. The Supercar Challenge is powered by Pirelli, Autosportinsurance.com, Syntix Innovative Lubricants, Magla, create your own digital magazine, and Valero, FIA approved race and rally base layers.